Hey guys, I'm Devin,
And I'm Diego.
and we're Baca Burrito. Unfortunately, Max is taking a nice little vacation in New Orleans. I'm sure I'll have a clip to send you guys to put up for you guys. But in the meantime,
Hey guys, Max from Baka Burrito here. Unfortunately, this week I can't talk about CGI anime with Diego and Devin because everybody knows I definitely love CGI anime. But I'm in New Orleans this week for work and kind of living the life right now, as you can all see. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video and I'll see you guys next week.
guys. But in the meantime, Diego and I decided that we're gonna cover CGI anime. Now, specifically, we're gonna talk about why it gets such a bad rap, and we're gonna offer a bit of a rebuttal as to why you should still give it a chance. Is that fair? Do you want to add
Yeah.
anything?
I mean, I don't know too much about CGI anime, but I have seen it in my anime, and I have seen a lot of people always online like complaining about CGI anime every single time. And I don't really see why, why it's such a big complaint, but I can see sometimes there are some moments where I'm like, okay, well, this could have for sure been done better in 2D.
Yeah.
Um,
I I
but yeah,
think
I
I
just want
think
to hear your points, honestly.
okay, that's fine. I do think it's very important to note that we will not I'm gonna do it now just so we don't do it later. We will not be talking about Berserk in any capacity but this. Okay. I just feel like that had to be said because we do it a lot, and I don't like talking about Berserk.
You guys talk about Berserk a lot, and we're
It's
talking
it's
about it right now.
it's because it's so bad in CG, but
Yeah.
I will be talking about the Berserk movies, so that works out.
I mean,
Um,
I feel like that's a good comparison, though, right?
yeah,
I mean, that'd be a good standard of like this CGI anime was done horrible, and I guess that's probably Berserk is actually probably one of the reasons why people give CG such a bad name because
it
when you
has
have
to be
such a lovable manga and then they turn it into a CGI, piece of shit, you're
nightmare.
just like, yeah, you're just like, wow, like I don't want to see CGI anime in any of my anime now. So I guess that could have been one of the cases, if you want to
Yeah,
speculate on that.
yeah. I mean, if you decide to, or like if you want to offer it as a comparison to ask a question, that's fine. But we, like I said, I don't want to rag on it for the video.
Yeah, yeah,
So I guess so. The first point I want to get into that I hear a lot online is, oh, it's clunky. Okay, so that's definitely true, but sometimes. But have you ever seen a '90s anime? Like
uh, yeah. I have seen a couple '90s
nine
animes.
'90s anime is kind of clunky, and that's 2D. So clearly, we're at a point where the medium can advance, right? The more it's done, the more it's explored, the
Yeah,
more fluid the animation can get. And I think a perfect example of that is like some of the earliest animation from like say One Piece, right? And like now, like when they redid all of the
oh,
art. So when you're looking at very early One Piece, you have some scenes where it's not quite as fluid as it gets. Like the artwork is there, the adaptation is there. It's
yeah,
just this scene could be more fluid. And now
yeah,
you're looking at the action scenes from like even the One Piece movie that just recently dropped. Like
yeah,
it is so clean, and then like
yeah,
that quality even carries over to the show.
yeah. Especially when you have 2D shit like the One Piece Stampede movie and then the new Dragon Ball movie, Dragon Ball Broly.
Amazing.
That the like when you compare that to like most CG, you're like, wow, like just do 2D. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
there's no point. But I mean, I guess from a trying standpoint, I guess the biggest reason why people think the CGI is clunky is because I guess the frame. When I was watching the Kengan Ashura, I would notice that like the frames weren't really there, or it was like skipping some frames. Does that make sense? Like it was
Yeah.
like a low frame rate or something. I couldn't really tell. I can't put my finger on it just by looking at it, but I could tell that there was like it wasn't as fluid as it would be if it was 2D. But that's not to say that's just because 2D has been explored so
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
that people can get it down to a T and it's not as cost productive. Cost productive, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, think about when anime finally made the switch from manual to digital, how
Yeah.
fluid everything got. Like
Yeah.
this is just the early days of CG in my opinion. But so the reason why I like to say that CG anime can absolutely work is because in the West, animated movies are dominant, right? You have things
Yeah,
like
3D
Up,
animated movies. Yeah.
you have things like Up, you have things like Shrek, you have things like all the Disney Pixar movies. Really,
Yeah.
they all dominate the movie the movie market, and like there's such an attention to detail. There's such like fine detail. It's such smooth animation.
Yeah.
Big Hero 6 even like things like that.
Yeah.
Um, and
The
then
Incredibles.
exactly. And then you go to the East, and it's like, okay, they're not quite as advanced, but you have the Berserk films, the 3 Berserk movies from 2012 to 2014. And those movies are done 2D, 3D hybrid.
Oh, 2D, 3D
And
hybrid? Okay.
they're a little bit clunky in the action scenes in the first movie, but they get smoother as they go on because it's one studio working on 3 movies over 3 years, right?
Yeah.
And so you see the growth of it. And the first one's not even bad. It was a good movie. It was like, oh, this is a little stiff. By the second one you're like, oh, this is getting good. This is good. But by the third movie you're like, oh, I'm into this. This is fine.
Yeah.
Like there's some things that just look weird because they're CG, but like
And,
obviously,
you know, interesting you say that. That gives me hope for Attack on Titan.
Mhm.
Because recently in the anime episode, I'm not too gassed about the CGI Titans, but hopefully it does get better as the season goes on. You know, 'Cause
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
gonna be seeing a lot of Titans. So when you compare like 2D Titans in season 1 and how beautiful that looked, all the kind of iconic scenes in there, versus now you're like, oh man, like you can tell. That's the
To be
problem.
fair-
The problem is that you can tell. I think that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, to be fair, there were often scenes where, especially with the Colossal Titan, they used CG heavily for him. Like when his ribcage grips the wall and they fight him like that. That was a very CG heavy scene, and it did take away from like the feel.
Yeah,
I-
because I feel like you go from watching this 2D story, and then it just flips on you to this 3D, and you're like, wow, like it's not even a story. Like now I'm watching, like you know what I'm saying? Like it takes you out of the experience a bit because you notice
Yeah.
stuff like that.
yeah,
Maybe.
and
I think
and
that's
yeah.
one of the biggest reasons.
I definitely agree with that because a different issue I had with that scene altogether was the way the steam was interacting with the CG model. It looked
it
kind of
looked
bad.
weird.
Yeah,
It looked weird. It didn't look like Steam shouldn't be.
yeah.
you know.
The steam wasn't interacting with him and the people the same way in any of the shots. And I know that's because he's CG and they're 2D, but like it wasn't masked well or anything like that, so
Yeah.
it was noticeable. It was like an eyesore. But Attack on Titan has also used CG for other Titans, like in season 2 here and there, season 3 here and there, and for the most part, they're not bad. They're for the most part.
For the most part. It's just for me. It's just the 2D is always It's just that when you compare the 3D scenes to the 2D scenes that they have for Titans, it's just.
Oh no, for sure.
You know what I'm saying?
The 2D
it's
scenes are
2D.
better. The 2D scenes are better. But another example I actually want to bring up is the Gantz movie. If you're unaware, Gantz is a movie about an alien orb that brings people back from the dead when they die to kill aliens, and then it gives them another chance at life. But they don't but there's some antics that happen, political, blah blah blah. Doesn't matter. They have Gant Zero, the movie, which is a precursor to part of the show, and that movie is entirely done in CG, and it's very similar to like the Final Fantasy movies, the final the cutscenes from Final Fantasy, things like that, and it looks really good. The whole movie, like it's not even clunky with the dubbing and the subbing. It looks like a redubbed movie, like in America, like with the English voices. So that gives me hope that like, oh, this is fully CG. This looks like a whole, like this is a full 3D rendered model. Like they look almost realistic. They look like people. And I think that served the art style so well too from that show because it already like a more realistic type of feel to the art style. So I guess that's another point I want to touch on. So we could jump into that real quick. Um, some art styles just don't work 2D. Some art styles just don't work 3D. Um, I don't think I like prior to 20 whatever year the Pokemon Detective Pikachu movie came out. Prior to that, I don't think I wanted to see a 3D Pokemon. You know, like
Yeah.
until I saw what they did and it was good. I was like, okay, that's cool. They look good.
So you're
Um,
talking about Detective Pikachu?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Detective
think the
Pikachu was
Pokemon look
really
real
good.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And recently with Sonic, they fixed
Yes.
the Sonic too.
Yeah.
So,
Oof.
I mean, luckily, I guess we just have to hit a point where that becomes the norm
Yeah.
in CG or in 3D animation, where that's just it gets to the level where that like anyone can do that, any studio
Yeah.
can do that.
Because again, I feel like there's like anime, CG is also not bound by human limitation, right? Like everybody we know has watched a Marvel movie, right? And they see
Yeah,
these people doing superhuman things, and most of their powers are CG, but they're still bound by what people can do. Because, like, if
yeah,
something doesn't look right, it's not going to look right. Whereas
yeah,
in an anime, you could have someone bring their arm all the way back, and it could look like it goes for a mile, and that would be completely acceptable to our minds because of
yeah,
how anime works. You could do that in CG too, right? Like, I would be
yeah,
okay seeing that. And I don't know. It's like people just aren't willing to give it a chance because they've seen it messed up. But it's
yeah.
also the issue is they're also giving it to inexperienced studios because it's so easily messed up.
Well, yeah, just because I feel like it's new, especially over there in the
Yeah,
in Japan. I feel like it's a new medium, or not a new medium, a new art form, I guess.
yeah.
I
Medium
really
was
would.
right. Medium was right. You got that.
Yeah, well, because it's still anime, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like that's why. But yeah, I mean, we could talk about Beastars. The CGI
Okay.
in
Yeah.
Beastars didn't even affect the storytelling at all. Like
Exactly.
what I can tell is that CGI anime to me is that just you don't really need doesn't need to be 2D to tell a good story.
Hmm.
Um, and for some, I just can't complain too much. But obviously, I think to me it's worth the blend. When I know I'm about to watch something that's completely CGI, then it almost doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like when I was watching Beastars, it was chill. Like I didn't even comment on the CG because I was like, it's just I'm focused on the story and everything.
Yeah. That's the thing. That's the thing. I feel like if the show itself, because Berserk, I hate to go back to it. Berserk has a great story. It wasn't adapt. The story wasn't told well in the anime, right?
Yeah,
So if the story's not compelling and the animation is bad, you're gonna pay attention to both. But if the story is excellent and the animation is decent, you won't even comment on the animation.
yeah, you
That and
won't.
that's B stars. I call B stars decently animated but a great story.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
I
like
didn't finish Beastars, but
that's fine. That's
I
fine.
could I could definitely see that part of it where the
It's
animation it just didn't get in the way. It didn't get in the way, you know.
correct.
It didn't
Correct.
get in the way. That's what it was.
Um, and that's the same thing with the Egg trilogy Berserk movies. They're 2D, 3D mesh, but it doesn't get in the way of the story. You still get the point across. You still feel it. You still feel the weight. This fucking sword doesn't sound stupid. Like, um, but then, so like going back to Gantz, like you have this world and everything is CG. Everything like the backgrounds, the people, the effects, the monsters, the atmosphere, like everything. And it looks good. Fine. Everything's smooth, sound design good, great story, believable circumstances for the characters. Cool. I like that. Well animated, great story, nothing to complain about, right? So like clearly it can be done.
Yeah, clearly it can be done.
And then you have things that are like clunky, like Attack on Titan, um, and
Yeah,
like it's fine. Like you don't
yeah,
really mind, but if it does it too much, it gets concerning. Like you were literally
yeah,
genuinely concerned, um,
yeah.
if that makes sense.
Makes complete. Makes complete sense. And that's actually a point I'd like to give to the um to the CGI. And crap, I forgot what I was gonna say before that. That shit was just so loud it caught me off guard.
You're good. You're good. You said that it was a point that you wanted to give to
Oh,
see.
oh yeah, to the choreography. So what you were saying about choreography, that a point I'd like to give to CGI anime is that when I was watching the Ashura, Kengan Ashura,
Yeah, yeah.
the Kengan Ashura fights, I could really tell what was going on. Like it was really easy for me to tell. Like, okay, that makes sense. I can see the body weight of how that would work, of like the motion and the momentum that they have behind. You know what I'm saying? It does feel like a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? But it's still done well, and it's portraying the fight really well. Because
Yes.
now I'm understanding exactly how they're getting out of these holds and how they're getting into these holds and stuff like that.
And they explain the complex special moves, like, and you could
Yeah.
see it in the CG. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, the fact that they explain the complex special moves, but you can see it done so well in CG anime.
Yep.
So it's like while they're explaining it, while they're doing it and explaining it, you can see them doing it. So it's like, oh, okay, like I feel like almost I can do this now. Like,
for example,
like, it's
the
really
character,
good.
the character Cosmo, he's my favorite character in Kengan Ashura. So I'm gonna keep talking about
Cosmo,
him. Right
is
now.
he the blonde
little
one?
He's the little blonde one. He's like 5'7",
Yeah.
$160. King of Stranglers or something like that.
Yeah,
is his name.
I saw him strangling the dude until
Yeah. So
getting smacked against the wall and then the floor.
you'd see that's the best fight. So he has a fight against this one dude, something Brody, in the first round, and the guy like outweighs him by almost 100 pounds, right? And his special move is called Zone, and when the only way he can do it is if the opponent thinks he's about to land a decisive victory, and it's a last second reversal. So in the guy's head, he's still thinking that he made the contact, like he hit him, but like what everyone else sees is Cosmo slip the punch and then get him from a rear naked choke, and it's really cool because it looks like a genjutsu at first, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what it looks like, but they're like, oh, they describe it like, oh, there's a lack of oxygen in his brain, and he thought he landed the punch because Cosmo didn't move until after it made a little bit of contact. Like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And like you see him slip the punch and then come up with the grip and get him in the choke. And the whole motion was fluid. And that's not common in CG anime. So even I was surprised. I was like, oh, okay. Like, and
you think they could have done that just as well in 2D?
There's definitely some 2D that do weight and fluidity very well. I'm not going to say there aren't, because that's just not true. But for this, the studio that did it was relatively new to CG as well. But they didn't have a crazy deadline or anything. They were just like, oh yeah, just get it done. And they took their time with it, you know? It was like, it wasn't like Terraformars where they were like, okay, CG's getting kind of crazy. Let's not do that no more. And then switch completely to 2D for season 3 and 2. Like it was like, oh, okay, that was weird. And like they changed the whole tone of the story and everything. Like it, like honestly, that ruined Terraformars for me. Switching to 2D or fully 2D.
Oh damn, I'd like to see that experience.
It's because they changed it to just a regular battle shonen at that point. It was weird, because it wasn't just the art style that they changed. I'm not too crazy like when studios change art style, I don't care usually. As long as it's done well, I don't care.
Yeah.
But they changed studios, they changed story, they changed art style, like everything changed, and it just wasn't good.
Storyboarding and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's an example of a show that was like, that went the opposite direction. I also don't mind when they do like cars and vehicles in CG. It's not the worst thing.
Yeah, same. Like vehicles make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Fate Stay Night uses. Actually, if we want to talk about a good blend between CG and 2D, In Fate Stay Night, or no, sorry, Fate Zero, Berserker is Lancelot, the Black Knight. He's
Oh
a
yeah,
complete,
he's
he's
completely CG. Yeah.
completely CG,
I wonder
and
why they did that.
um, it was because of the smoke. It was just for his body effect. He was the hardest one to
Oh,
animate, um, apparently,
okay.
because he had such a dynamic like arsenal of like moves and things he could do. Like if you think about it, his all of his attacks were like redirecting projectiles, taking over airplanes, taking over trucks, taking over tanks. Like so he
Oh,
was already interacting with like machinery and stuff.
yeah,
So it just made the most sense for his interactions
yeah.
because his body for a brief moment when he takes his helmet off, his head, Lancelot's head, his real head is 2D. Um so part of the reason was because of how they had to animate him, and another part of the reason was his noble phantasm, which is the heroic spirit's special power. It gives him, it hides his identity, it hides his stats, and it hides any semblance of or trace of who he is. Like, so you
Oh,
don't know the name of his noble phantasm, you don't know his name, you don't know his stats, because if you don't know, the Fate characters are like video game characters. They
yeah.
get a stat sheet, so like a mage or another servant can see their stats, unless they have one that hides it.
Okay.
So I think that was a good way to personify the fact that it was hiding something. So it was a black armor with like a staticky black smoke, and it looked good. It never looked bad like on screen with someone else. Gilgamesh had an airplane, and he took a fighter jet, and like they were having a sky
Yeah.
battle. That's probably one of my favorite fights in anime. It's so funny because they were just flying. um, but yeah, so clearly there's studios that do CG well, and then there's studios that don't. And the craziest part about that is, I feel like all it would take is a simple, you know, just commit to the art form, commit to it, plan, because you can see the studios that planned it, and then you can see the ones that didn't. The Berserk studio absolutely did not plan. Actually, and that's true. They didn't actually have anything concrete for storyboarding or art direction until 4 months before their first deadline.
4 months before their first deadline.
Yeah, yeah. That was 3 years into production, or 2 years.
Yeah. So basically, they went on Google and typed in sword hitting iron sound.
Yeah, apparently.
Free. They got the free one too.
Yo, it's crazy because that damn sword makes that sound when it hits a little girl. I put it in our berserk video.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna link that somewhere around here, whichever side I'm on. I'm gonna link it somewhere, so that they can watch it. But yeah, you have any other questions? Anything else to add about CG before we wrap up?
No, actually, I would just like to know if you guys dislike CG, if you guys want to see more CG. I personally would like for CG to be more expanded on because it seems like in order to, because anime is always trying to tell stories of these grand scale
Yep.
battles, of these grand
Yep.
scale things, and you have giant people, you have cars, you have airplanes in these fights, and you gotta not in these fights, but just in the story in general. And if CG is a good solution to making that more cost effective, then I think the anime medium should start bending more to making sure that their CG is, top notch and can mix
Now,
well with the
we're
thing.
definitely not saying everything should be CG because I do still like
Yeah,
my
of
2D
course not.
videos. Yeah.
Of course
Uh,
not. But what I'm saying is that if you can tell a story and for some reason you need it to be CG,
mhm.
then it's better to have your
Absolutely.
CG game on point. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's better if you're like, if you're about to do all 2D and then you come across like a manga panel with this giant spaceship and you're like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this moving in 2D well. Then you better at least have your CG studio doing it nice.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I
I
agree with
mean,
that.
I guess that's just something that's gonna have to be with the time. As time
Yep.
passes, they'll have more faith in CG and more studios will see it as a viable option.
The anime studios don't seem willing to put in the time and effort to do so at this point in time.
Oh, okay.
That's what I
Yeah.
mean. I don't mean they're actually incapable.
Well, I mean, no, but they could be incapable because they could be inexperienced with that type of hair.
And that's fine, but
You know
like
what I'm saying?
practice. So actually, let's give them a couple things to watch. Let's say like a couple anime that CG things that they should check out. And I think I've been talking about them for the most part. We have Arslan Senki. We have Kengan Ashura.
Yeah, Kengan Ashura was great.
The Berserk movies from 2012 to 2014. Final Fantasy Advent.
How long are each of those movies?
About I think the longest one is like 2 hours. The shortest one is like 1:30.
Okay.
So it's about 6 hours of content, but it covers the whole like Golden Age arc.
Okay.
They're numbered as well for your convenience.
1, 2, 3, yeah.
Yep. Then there's Final Fantasy Advent Children and Gant Zero. These are all good examples. Oh, and Beastars. These are all
Beastars, yeah.
These are all good examples of CG anime that will not turn you off to the medium, and they're good stories. So you can sit there and you could go, okay, I see how this art style doesn't affect a great story. And then, like, if you want to see something that isn't so good, watch the other Berserk, 2016. And then you could see how a bad animation and a no lack of direction can ruin it. And that's why there's such a bad rap to CG.
Yeah.
And those are my final thoughts. Anything else?
No, just give us your comments on whether you like CG anime, whether you'll watch, some recommendations to us for CG anime that are good or just horrible, so horrible we have to watch. Be sure to like and subscribe.
I'm Devin.
And I'm Diego.
And we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one.